Marko, can you tell me us a little about yourself and what you're doing for how you came into the hobby and how what you're doing for the 9H project?
Oof, how I came into the hobby, that was a very long time ago in the late 90s. There was a group of kids in our local library that was playing some miniature games, and I already had a lot of those small toy soldiers and things like that. And I did start very young, putting together planes and aircraft and ships and submarines and things like that. So I thought, oh, that's something nice that I could use my miniatures for playing.
Yep.
And I first bought a command group of hobgoblins, quite randomly, then started collecting some back then GW Bretonians, then High Elves, then Space Marines, and more miniatures in the last 20 plus years that I care to remember. And so, when the 9th started, I joined up, first as some kind of a forum support to try and carry on my experiences from working on the ulfon.net, where I was a moderator for, what, 10 years now? So I had the experience that I thought would be useful, as well as a long time spent organizing tournaments in Croatia and making army compositions, playing competitively as well on the ETC, GT from GW, local tournaments. And I said, okay, this is something that I think would be helpful so others can continue enjoying the hobby that I enjoy myself. And over time I first started as army support, then I became a background team member, then the second in command in the background team, then I became an advisory board and the army design team, followed by becoming an executive board member, and then I became the chairman of the executive board, but that was reshuffled recently, and I became, I don't know if that's still yet official. No, that's not yet official. That will be a surprise. So I do a lot of stuff along with my everyday work. Those who follow the forums, I usually get 25 notifications per hour as I try to keep up with the general public, because I think that interaction with people is very important. I understand my mode of writing is not the most pleasant one, so if I ever come too hard when I write to you or too brusque, don't take it to the heart. It's not meant that way.
So, how many ETC have you been to before?
This is my 7th ETC.
Okay.
Yeah, 7th.
And this year is in your home country?
Yes, in my home country. As far as I've observed, it's going quite nicely.
Yes, I think it is good. Very well.
I have no complaints about the sanitation. The AC is, as far as the players have said, quite nice. For me, it's a bit chilly, but then again, I'm more accustomed to the heat down here that we have, so it's fine. The food, I have no idea. I've been eating from home, so sneaking my food into the venue, though you shouldn't.
I've been eating outside, but the food they're making seems nice.
Yeah.
So it's like burger food. So.
Yeah, so who likes that, you can eat it.
Yeah.
As far as the fact that it's close to home, it's not really that close, because sure, when you're traveling somewhere, you usually have to pay money and things like that, but you're always somewhere very close to the venue. So getting after the games to where you rest or in the morning is quite okay. Here, it takes me nearly an hour, if everything goes okay, to go from home to the venue and back. For example, last night after our dinner, I missed the last tram, and there were no cabs in the vicinity to answer me, so I was home 1.5 hours later after we parted.
Yeah, I saw you riding when you were home. That was perfect. So, can you tell me 3 things you like about the 9H and 3 things you don't like about the 9H?
Okay, so from the project side of things,
just the general side.
Just general side. 3 things I like is that I can continue with my hobby, and I'm sure other people can continue with their hobbies. That the majority of the people who interact do it in a civil manner, though we have some bad apples. We try to moderate their experiences and try to lessen their impact on others. And what would be the third one? Oh yes, for me personally, the chance to build a world that can ensure that the people can continue with what they knew before, but also in a different clothing. And things I don't like, the time I spent on working on the night page. So, for example, if I have an 8 or 10 hour shift at work and then come home for another 4 or 5 hours, interacting with the community and doing some errands and dealing with PMs and all those things, it can be quite exhausting, especially if you count in my own workout time, my free time, going out. It's basically like having a second half job.
Yeah.
Things I might not like from the game perspective is I really miss the random ranges. For example, guess range with war machines and things like that. I do not miss, for example, the lack of the fixed charge ranges, or for example, the inability to measure things during the game. Okay, that was interesting, but it requires a different set of skills than what is currently involved, and might be less enjoyable for a greater number of people than what we currently have.
Yeah, but also this is very old or semi-old rules.
Yes.
So it's not something players would be used to anyway.
Yes. So, I mean, it's been what, 8 years since we lost that. Yeah, since 2010,
yeah,
when the Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition came out. I mean, just a few weeks ago, I was just having fun with one of my friends, and we played a 5th edition game, and it did not feel that strange. I mean, the rules were different, the tricks and of the trade a bit different, but the feeling was still the same as we continue to have now. So I think we did a good job to preserve the spirit of the game while making it our own. And what would be the third thing that is like? I don't think there is a third one.
Your team, how are they performing here?
Can we not speak about that? We're doing the traditional quality of Croatian games.
Okay.
So when we score more than 60 points in celebration, we are aiming to not be the last or the one before last. That would be at least some kind of a okay result. I mean, the team had 2 last-minute changes. The player who played the Kingdom of Equity had to switch, and so he got a new army and everything, and he usually plays Emperor Zonstal or some Highborn elves, so he's a more of a easygoing guy. He plays for shits and giggles. So he's basically here for the slaughter. And I got called into the team on Monday. My captain called me, Marko, I'm sending you 2 lists, pick the one you like the most. Can you play on the weekend? And I was like, who's missing? One of our team, those from the forums who know the nicknames, Archangelus M, he had to work, so I had to stand in with an awful list. Yes, this is a public interview. Franja, this goes to you. Whatever was going through your mind when you made that list, shame, shame, shame. But as far as it goes, I managed to top my worst ETC result from 2013. I currently have 31 points.
Okay.
So that's 10 points more. I'm 33% better. I will hope to break at least 40 points for the event, considering I haven't been playing much in the last 2.5 months due to work and other activities. And I'm not familiar or comfortable with the playstyle that Franja has built for his army.
That'd probably be hard to play another guy's army.
Yes. Yeah. I usually, when I play Highborn Elves, it's units and units of medium-sized elite infantry, mostly sword masters. Then, depending what characters I want to use, either a dragon wizard or a combination of ordinary prince on foot with some archmage, something that can be quite flexible, doesn't contain too many points, and things like that.
Can you tell us something about what to expect from the 9X project? I know you're working on the 2.0 to get that done.
Yes, that is in the final stretch. We're using this period during the summer to find out the final things that are not working as we intended, so they can be remedied. And the release should be in the autumn period, if everything goes to plan. So considering we have a lot of moving parts, we have the art team, we have the writing team, we have the lecturing team, we have the rules team, the balancing team, the army design teams, then the army community support that bring us most of the information, what is not working as intended. Yeah, if everything goes as planned during the autumn, so that will be October, November, December period, the second edition public should go out, and that will be the rule that will remain for the next 5 or 6 years by our count. The goal is not to change the rules until all the army books are updated into the 9-page format, and then leave some more space so people who had their armies updated last can have a period of to enjoy their own armies, while to service the armies that were released previously, we are doing the auxiliary list and auxiliary books project. We already released the Asklander book for the Warriors of the Dark Gods. There is another Warrior of the Dark Gods book in the works, one about more centered about the nomadic culture of Central Eugea, taking inspiration from the real world Pontic steppe and the Central Asian steppes. So that would be not Mongolians, not the Huns, but for example the more Indo-European groups such as the Scythians, the Sarmatians, maybe some Sumerians, things like that. So those of you who are interested, Google it. You'll find quite interesting things that you can expect mixed with the War of the Dark Gods general theme. And then there's also the campaign booklet that we're working on. We are also planning to introduce allies, so you can play with 2 or 3 friends or one army taken from several armies. Then there are also, in addition, there will be armies, auxiliary armies that are not in support of the main 16 armies. So we will pick and choose places from the globe that are just minor things that we can elevate for people that want to enjoy that part of the hobby. For example, I know I've talked with Edward, the head of the background team, and another executive board member that we should introduce halflings or hobbits, depending how we can name them. Maybe we can introduce some 9th specific name for them, and to introduce their culture, how we envision them in our setting. Then there's also different kinds of maybe gnolls or sea people or bird creatures, whatever, maybe some kind of an ant or insect army that can be quite interesting, have a bit of a different mechanic, but more of a background and modeling project than a pure gaming thing.
Okay. What's the plan about army books? What's the next army book that will come out?
The next one that is in the works is the Demon Legions book. It has gone into the 3rd phase of internal playtesting, and after that is complete, it should go into the 1st phase of public playtesting. So I hope everything will be ready either ahead or at the same time as the public release of the 2nd edition. The background is mostly done, which I give a public apology to my background team members for basically being absent for the last month. So thank you for doing my part of the work. And after that, we are still on the debate. We have 2 armies that we promised way back when we thought things would work slightly differently. Those are the Dread Elves and the Infernal Wolves, and it should be for the best that we honour those promises. But there's also other armies that need our attention, for example, the Kingdom of Aquitaine, because we know the story with them. They did not. The concept of faction of knightly warriors in a fantasy setting has not had full army book support in over 15 years, I think.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Very long time. So I think they deserve something special, and they're also the always problematic armies with difficult IP structures. For example, the Vermin Swarm the orcs and goblins, even though they're quite generic as a faction, they're elements that people are accustomed to that are something that we need to adjust and make our own. And I think that's that for the moment, but there will be a discussion between the executive board and the rules team and the design teams what would be the best way forward, how to develop the game, and also in cooperation with our PR team and the Army community support to see what would give us the best result while giving the most pleasure to the people.
Can you tell us something about doing the background?
Well, it's quite a lot more work than most people imagine because, yes, anyone can just sit down and put a fantasy setting. But we decided to go into a little bit of low fantasy, so more like, well, when you speak about flying dragons and magic, it can't really be low fantasy, but more Game of Thrones, less Final Fantasy, for example. We tried to construct a real world. So we started from geology and climate and biosphere diversity that we tried to overlap onto our own world. For example, the basic outlook of the world was the map. I did it by taking the map of the world and then sketching out the areas that should be sunk, that should be elevated, and keeping in mind that the geological order in which things were constructed are consistent, because often when you see fantasy maps, they have no connection with anything that would ordinarily happen in the real world. For example, there's a lake here, there's a mountain there, there's a river going in this direction, though the lay of the land should be differently, and things like that. So once we had that covered, we decided to put armies on the map, and we tried to connect them with the conceptual basis upon which people were accustomed their army collections should be attached to. So, for example, in horizontal, players ended up in what is basically Central Europe. Kingdom of Aquitaine ended up in an area that would be equivalent to France and Britain. Actually, not much Britain. For example, the Highborn Elves ended up in a Britain that has southern pieces moved about. For example, the top of Scotland, the Highlands, were drafted onto what would be Ireland, and the sea was connected together, so the Irish Sea became a lake in the middle, and the entire island was then pushed into the location of Atlantis, which should be equivalent of Azores or some other kind of volcanic hotspot, for example, like Iceland. So it's all still geologically acceptable. And then we started, when we decided where these people were, so we said Emperor Zonstal would speak a Germanic language. And in order to make it as easy as possible for us, we said, okay, we will not complicate. The language of the Emperor Zonstal would be German. The language of Kingdom of Aquitaine would be French. But we do make some archaic phrases and words to make them feel more like something that is happening in the past, as, for example, that is in the present. And when we for example, all the things are in our world built in their written in their languages, and we, when produce the background, write it in a translation of English. The Ninth Age world does not have an English language, so we can use it as a neutral source to extract the information and present to the wider public. Then we had the non-human languages, like the elves, and we said, okay, what would be the easiest way to construct an Elven language that should sound similar to what people expect of an Elvish language? And we decided we would use Celtic languages. But we did not use the insular Celts, for example, what would be Welsh, Gaelic, or Irish. We chose the continental Celtish languages that are basically extinct today. But we did not choose their words. We have two linguists working on it that just took the grammar of the Celtic languages, took the structures and the sounds, and created an entire new lexicon. So we started with a Proto-Elvish language. It developed into the Sylvan language. It developed then from the Sylvan into the Highborn Elf. And then the Dread Elf language is a mix of a Highborn Elf language spoken by the highborns that were in a lot of contact with the Sylvan languages, but then went across the sea and became colonists. So you can actually feel and see the organic development of a language from a basis to what people should over time be introduced to. We have a plan to release all those languages, for example, like Tolkien had at the back is Three Kings, an appendix, so you can actually swear at your opponent in Dwarven or Elvish, or maybe even in some ancient language. For example, we're using almost a direct translation of the ancient Egyptian for the kingdom of Neptesh. And then there's also one language that is really strange. For the Saurian ancients, we are developing a connection of the combination of clicks, hisses, and call displays on the creatures themselves, because the vocal structure of a lizard should not be, and their teeth and their tongue should not be able to reproduce the sounds that we can as mammals. And then we have also a similar thing with beastmen, where their language is also quite different from what you might as a human expect. And then there's also the symbolism of colors, of icons, of various mythological concepts that go through the background of the 9th page. For example, we took a solar deity like Zuna, which corresponds to, for example, the Old Norse Suna, but also has connections with Mitra in the Middle East, that was quite popular in the Roman Empire as a kind of a savior religion that was counterpart to the early Christianity, but we all know they didn't succeed. And we're trying to forge a different yet familiar narrative that people can find themselves in it. They can say, okay, this speaks to me, I want to play this army, I want to write this background, I want to do this, that, and whatever they enjoy as part of this hobby.
But it's very detailed, so that's probably why it takes so long to make.
Yes.
Because, yeah, actually, even if I didn't know this, you were doing this so detailed, the language and all that.
Yes, we even made a map of, internally, I don't know where it's saved exactly, of how the sea currents move due to the different land masses and how that affects the winds and the rainfall, and when we were making the map, and especially when we were making localized regional maps, how the fauna and flora should be dispersed.
Well, thanks for talking to me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for what you are doing for the 9H. So, it's appreciated.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.